everyone, and welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Dashew, and I'm joined by two dudes who also have their own podcasts. The host of the Projection Booth podcast, Mr. Mike White, and the host of the Wake Up Heavy podcast. You heard him here last month. It's his second time, and boy, I'm sure he's happy he's here today. Mark Begley. How's it doing, fellas? How is it doing? Good,
It's doing good.
It's doing. How you doing, Mike?
Well, I've had this trouble with methamphetamine lately, but we'll talk about it.
What? Me too. How weird. I've been staying up late jamming out to Camp Rock and Camp Rock 2. We're only talking about the first one, though, to be fair. I haven't seen the second one yet. I'm still letting this one digest before we get to the second one, which we're not talking about this month. But we may talk about it in the future just to punish ourselves a little bit more. We're talking about 2008's Disney Channel original movie, Camp Rock.
For anyone with a future on the stage, there's only one place to spend the summer.
You're going to Camp Rock!
And to get in, they've got to bring the moves.
Put your hands up!
The sound.
Wow, she's amazing!
And the look.
Which color? They're exactly the same. So you see my dilemma.
But it's best to leave behind
Pop star phenom Shane Gray needs to clean up his act.
the attitude.
I don't want to waste my summer at some camp. Hey man, we used to love this place. Hey!
Both got classes to teach. Yours starts in 5.
In a place where your friends are your competition.
This is not amateur night.
There's a difference between standing out
How long did you think you could keep your little secret?
and standing alone.
I have no choice. I've got to ban you from the rest of camp activities.
It's just for once, I just wanted to fit in and be popular. You know, just once.
Do you know what it's like to feel so in the dark?
I heard this girl singing, and it kind of reminded me of the music that I liked. Hello? Who's in here?
From Disney Channel comes a story about finding your sound and raising your voice.
That's the song.
Starring Joe, Kevin, and Nick Jonas.
Group hug. Much better.
And introducing Demi Lovato with Megan Jet Martin and Allison Stoner. It's Disney Channel's most rockin' original movie yet. Camp Rock. Premieres Friday, June 20th at 8, 7 Central.
So the film is written by a bunch of folks: Karen Gist, Regina Hicks, Julie Brown. Yes, Uptown Julie Brown. And Paul Brown. It is directed by Matthew Diamond, and it stars Demi Lovato and the Jonas Brothers.
Well, more just Joe.
Yeah, just the Joe brother of Jonas Brothers. And we'll talk about Joe Jonas when we get to him. But Mark, I'm curious. I know you have a daughter. Did you watch this with her? And if you didn't, why not? And if you did, how ashamed of you is she?
Yes, I told her that we were going to watch. The reason I went with this one out of the other choices for this month was when I mentioned it to her, her response was, ew. And I thought, okay, well, this must be rife with wonderful things. Now, I later...
That is the best statement I have ever heard to describe film. It is rife with wonderful things.
I later discovered that she hadn't actually seen it. She was just kind of put off by who was in it. But I did make her watch it, and my wife ended up coming in shortly after we started it, and she watched it with us, and neither of them have forgiven me yet.
And by proxy, I will never be forgiven by so many people by proxy, I feel like. Richard Haddam's family probably never forgives him for watching Razorback. Now your family will never forgive you for watching Camp Rock, and I am continuing to make the world a much worse place by allowing folks to watch these movies. But what did you think, Mark? I'm very curious. What did you think of actually sitting down and watching Camp Rock?
It ended up being quite a bit worse than I was anticipating, and not very enjoyable. That's my that's my easy summation. We'll get into the nuts and bolts, but
what about you, Mike?
This movie made me appreciate Teen Beach Movie a lot more.
And if you want to hear us talk about that, there is an episode for it.
Yeah, this felt like a TV episode of something that was stretched out. I think there's already a show, maybe it's on Disney, maybe it's on Nickelodeon, and I'm a bad papa for not knowing, but my granddaughter watches one where it's a bunch of kids at camp, and this felt very much like this could have been an episode of that, but then just stretched to an interminable length.
I think that I know what you're talking about. If I'm thinking of the same show, it was a spin-off of the show Jessie, and a lot of the same people are in it, and my daughter watched it after kind of watching Jessie over and over again. She moved on to that one, but didn't stick with it. I think she was starting to kind of age out of that stuff when it was around.
A spin-off to Jessie, is that Better Call Saul, or is that El Camino?
It's called Science Bitch, actually. Thank you very much. So, like y'all, I had never seen this. Unlike y'all, I would not have a reason to watch this. I do not have young children or children in my household at any point during the day or at all, frankly. So this is pretty far outside of, where I would have been. I mean, in 2008 when this came out, I was 18, way past kind of the time to be watching Disney Channel movies, at least contemporary ones. Us millennials do have a very big place in our heart for Halloween Town and Xenon, so those are the ones I'm more familiar with. We talked a little bit about that on Teen Beach Movie, but I didn't dislike this movie. I think more to your point, Mike, this movie feels like Teen Beach Movie without some of the fun. It's very straightforward. It's very much a Demi Lovato-led film. It's very much about Demi Lovato. It's very much about how well she can sing, because she's a very talented and gifted singer, as are the Jonas Brothers. But you have to give the characters more to do. And for me, you can't put the Jonas Brothers on the poster of your movie when it ain't the Jonas Brothers. There's one in this movie. Joe Jonas is the weaker of the three brothers when it comes to acting. It's actually pretty funny in the scenes where you see the Jonas Brothers together. He feels the most wooden out of all three. And it makes me wonder why he's the one that's in this movie, until I realize he's the most good-looking of the three. At least conventionally good-looking. Especially in 08. Yeah. I mean, he's got the...
though?
He has the helmet hair. He has the mullet thing.
Oh, that hair is so terrible.
The Bieber hair.
Oh, God, it's awful. And those eyebrows, I'm just like, please, come over here. Let me thread those eyebrows for you, buddy.
But... I think we can all agree, of the three brothers, he does not have the acting chops that the other two do. I mean, they genuinely feel pretty, organic when you see them on screen.
No, he was awful. He was wooden throughout, and I don't know if during their quote-unquote live performances as the Jonas Brothers, if they dance like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC used to do, but his dancing in this movie was atrocious. That was the other thing that I was like, maybe one of the other ones could have done this better. I don't know, but he was horrible.
I am so unfamiliar with Demi Lovato that I kept mixing her up with Ana Maria Perez de Tagle, I think her name is, who, if you took two pictures and held them up next to each other, you'd be like, oh my God, these girls look nothing like each other. But in the context of the movie, I was just like, who is that? Is that the girl whose mom works in the kitchen, or is that other girl? And I kept mixing them up through the whole thing.
The issue that I had with Demi Lovato's character has nothing to do with her acting or her casting. It's the fact that her character's name is Mitchie, and the only thing that I can think of when I hear a character in film say Mitchie is Marge Simpson going, I'll erase these Itchy and Mitchie cartoons, because she has no idea that they're called Itchy and Scratchy, and every time someone said Mitchie, that's all I could think of. Thanks, The Simpsons, you've ruined yet another thing. But that's all I could think of, because what a terrible name for a character.
Mitchie isn't too good, and Mitchie is afraid of her roots, and I just don't get this whole... I am ashamed to say that I am here, working at the camp. It just feels so classist and stuff that I'm just like, oh, come on. This is ridiculous. And it's just like, okay, when's the secret going to come out? Oh, Lord. Just the plot was so predictable and trite, which is a shame because I love Julie Brown. So I'd like to think that maybe she added something good to it, but it's just rough, man.
Yeah, that was a big problem. A big problem of mine as well. The tropes, the teen I don't even know if you call them teen comedy tropes, but that being ashamed, being from the other side of the tracks, apparently, I don't, know if that was part of the deal, having to lie about everything and lying, the whole deal with China. I'm not sure why she plucked that out of the air, but now everything's revolving around her mom being big in China, and
one might even say huge in China.
Yeah. And why it wasn't big in Japan, I don't know, because that would have worked perfectly. But that whole, that they're going to uncover. Who cares? I mean, I guess that's a kid thing, but is it so? I mean, maybe it was still in 2008, but is it so much these days? That whole idea of who cares what your parents do?
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking cool that her parents own a food truck. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, her parents work for themselves and they own a food truck? That sounds pretty cool to me. I would be pretty proud of my parents being entrepreneurs and owning their own food truck. Demi Lovato. I mean, really, like, it smacks of the, like, late 80s, early 90s. Like, that is a very much a 80s and 90s thing, not a 2000s thing.
It's Pretty in Pink.
Right.
Yeah.
Some Kind of Wonderful, which is just Pretty in Pink again.
Right.
But that drove me a little bit nuts. And then the one thing that was driving me nuts that didn't happen was I thought the other big trope was going to be somebody stealing her song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And nobody did.
What was
Spoilers.
that even about?
I thought for sure that was going to happen as well.
They show a scene where the character played by Megan Martin goes in and looks at Demi Lovato's journal, realizes that the song that Joe Jonas is singing is her song, and it goes nowhere.
Right.
Like, what was the point? My wife kept mentioning, it feels like they had another point in this movie that they just kind of cut out. And it really does, because they make such a point to show that scene, and then it goes nowhere. There's no payoff.
Yeah, and early on, even when she's first singing it at the piano by herself, and he's hearing it outside the window while he's hiding, I thought, oh, okay. I mean, I kept saying this out loud. My wife and daughter probably thought I was an idiot by the end of the movie because it never panned out. But I thought he was going to steal it, and then I thought the mean girl was going to steal it, and nobody stole it. And so what was the point of having everybody hearing her song? And, well, I get the point of why everybody was hearing her song, but why show her with the notebook like you already said, Chris? Why set this up, and never have it pay off? There was a lot of no payoffs in the film.
Yeah, and that's a shame because, again, for the payoffs that we do get, they are very generic, they are very transparent, you see them coming from a mile away, and it's, again, this movie feels like if it had been given one or two more passes at the writer's desk, because 4 people credited for this film, you really would have thought they would have come up with something a little bit more even edgy or maybe envelope pushing. I mean, this is Disney Channel in 2008. This is trying to appeal to a somewhat different crowd than Halloween Town. I mean, this movie isn't about, love your family, and it's like finding yourself and becoming comfortable with yourself and becoming who you always wanted to be. That's really what this movie is about. And for those themes that they were tackling, which I think are important themes, I think we would all agree, they don't back it up with a interesting storyline to go with it. And it's a shame because Teen Beach Movie, I think we would agree, Mike, it's essentially mining the same things. It's mining the same tropes of, being self-sufficient, being enough, being who you want to be, chasing your dreams. It's talking about the same things.
Right.
It does it better, a lot better. This movie feels so ham-fisted and so just trite. It feels like it's just treading the same ground of 5 different other movies we've seen do the same thing better 5 other times.
Well, things like Alison Stoner as the snarky friend. I was just like, okay, cool. The snarky friend character, I can usually get behind her. But she was so half-baked. I was just like, come on, do something. Be funnier, like you have, or be supportive more of Mitchie, come on, let's see some stuff here. Nothing. Where was the manure getting dumped on the mean girl? That's got to happen in a movie, or at least a chocolate shake or something.
Well, they threw spaghetti.
It was so easy to get spaghetti out. It wasn't even like spaghetti with red sauce.
It was butter noodles. Every Midwestern's favorite.
It was ketchup with egg noodles.
They must have thought I was a schnook or something.
Well, I was going to mention Allison Stoner being in that, and I was waiting for her big dance scene because she tore it up when she was a little kid in that Missy Elliott video and a number of other videos when she was 7 years old or something. And I thought, boy, that was a wasted opportunity. She could have busted out some serious moves. Underutilized and half-baked the whole shebang.
Yeah, it is too bad because outside of pretty much most of the other characters in the film, Allison Stoner is the one kind of interesting character because when given the opportunity to out Mitchie as the cook's daughter, oh, how terrible, she doesn't because Mitchie stands up for, I'm just going to call her Demi Lovato. If I keep saying Mitchie, I'm going to lose my mind. But she sticks up for, Demi Lovato's character sticks up for her, which was kind of nice. I mean, again, it's kind of breaking with what I would assume a film like this is going to do. And it kind of does. And then you have the Megan Martin character finding out on her own. And of course, she has nothing to do in this movie other than act like an entitled ass the entire film. And her character doesn't even get a payoff. It feels like they're about to have a payoff and then they don't. Did anyone else notice that or was that just me?
Well, the only thing I saw was that the mom, the distant mom thing paid off because she shows up at the end with the performance and takes a phone call during the middle of that. So I was happy to actually see her there show up instead of just it being something that was said the whole time and intimated the whole time that she obviously doesn't have a close relationship with her mom because her mom's always on tour, et cetera, et cetera. So I was happy to see the mom show up. But it didn't really pan out to all that much at the end.
No, because there's a scene where she goes and apologizes to Demi Lovato and Allison Stoner, and you think that they're going to, welcome her into their friend group, and she just kind of walks off screen unceremoniously. And I was like, what? I was expecting... I guess when it's a Disney film, I'm expecting that everyone comes together in the end, and everybody's on the same page, and everybody is hunky-dory and happy, because it's a Disney movie. And it kind of didn't do that. I know in the sequel, the character that Megan Martin plays comes back, and they're friends, so they do ultimately get to that point, but are they not?
Not really, no.
Well, fun.
The other camp opens up across the lake, very Meatballs-esque, and it becomes the slobs versus the snobs kind of thing, and she's right there joining the snobs.
Oh, nice. Okay, so she continues her character's descent into being a piece of shit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, good. Well, see, that kind of makes sense.
I mean, I didn't finish it, so maybe she gets redeemed at the end, but what I saw, she was, just being a biatch.
Technical term.
Now finding out that it's Meatballs-esque, I might have to check out the sequel. I couldn't do it, and no one would watch it with me. So
I would not recommend that you take the time to watch it.
Okay, I'll read the Wikipedia page.
There you go.
I will say, at least the second film has the Jonas Brothers on the poster, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, they're actually in the movie.
They are. Yeah, they are much more of a presence. The other two guys are there.
It feels a little weird that this movie is a Demi Lovato JoBros joint, and it is JoBro 1. And it's unfortunate because he's not given a damn thing to do. And again, we've already mentioned he's a little wooden. I don't know if it's he is wooden or the writing is not helping allow him to do anything other than be wooden.
I would say both.
Well, okay. Very fair.
I believe it was originally written for somebody else, and then once they got him, the other brothers kind of got shoehorned in. That's why they're generally seen elsewhere.
Calling from the car.
Phone calls, right. So, I don't know what... my daughter wasn't even born yet. Or no, yeah, she was a year old when this came out, so I had even less familiarity with music stuff going on for kids back then than I do now, even though she's, listening to her own stuff. But I don't... Were they big at the time, or was this later or right at the cusp?
This is right at the cusp.
And yeah, so he got he got in for whatever reason, and then they got shoehorned in. So,
well, I mean, again, if you're going to have a movie about a rock camp, who better than 16, 17-year-old good-looking rocker boys to be in your movie? What's weird is, like, there's supposed to be chemistry between him and Demi Lovato, and there was none. No. Zero. It is lacking in chemistry. And that, to me, is bizarre, because I'm assuming in the sequel, they're meant to be boyfriend-girlfriend, and in what universe were we being shown that story? Because they barely share screen time. And when they do share screen time, it just doesn't work.
Well, again, I think that goes back to mainly his lack of acting and dancing ability. And probably the writing, too.
I mean, that's the thing about the Jonas Brothers, though. They're not like in sync. I mean, the dudes can actually play their instruments. I mean, Joe Jonas would go on to form DNCE, who had that song that we all heard a million times, Cake by the Ocean.
Oh, that was them.
That's Joe Jonas when he separated from the Jonas Brothers and did his own thing. So that's Joe Jonas, and he's a good, talented musician. Not great at acting, at least in this film. Which leads me to my next question. What did we think of the music?
It was very forgettable for me. Like, there wasn't one song where I was just like, oh, this is the song of the movie. Like, even those final jam, which I hate saying final jam, but the final jam that they have, I'm just like, meh. I was so meh through so much of this.
Yeah, nothing became embedded in my brain afterward. I was sort of hoping, if nothing else, that would be the hook for me, the songs. Because I'm not averse to grooving to a kiddie bop tune by any means. But yeah, I can't even remember any of the melodies or anything from the music. And I don't know if I want to bring this up now, but as far as like the musical structure of the film, I found it very confusing whether this was supposed to be realistic or whether it was supposed to be like a what's the term? More like a magical realism where you can hear all the instruments even though they're not around, or is this supposed to be more like reality? And they kind of blur that line a lot throughout, and that really bothered me for some reason.
Are you talking about how Joe Jonas could sing harmonies to his own voice?
That's why I brought it up, so that you could drop that little nugget in.
It's almost like when there aren't any other Jonas Brothers there, he can still sing their melodies.
Yeah. He was able to double track himself pretty astonishingly, which, and Mike, I know on your show you're talking about musicals this month, and you've mentioned the difference between a musical and an opera, and then things like Blues Brothers, wherever that falls, where all of a sudden everybody breaks into song. But in the Blues Brothers, there's generally instruments around, and there is a notion of realism to that. They're in Ray Charles's shop, and there's all these instruments, so yeah, they can play a song. You get out of that a little bit when you go out into the street and everybody's dancing to the song, but it's done so as to make that distinction clear. It started this way and now it's fantasy. In this, I was like, okay, why am I hearing drums? There's no drummer. Why am I hearing keyboards? There's no keyboard player around. Why is he, double tracking himself, sitting by the shore of the lake there? So
there was one thing with the Blues Brothers, speaking of, where it was like, you can clearly hear 4 horns when there are only 3 on stage. It's like, really? Can I clearly only hear 4 horns? I can't clearly hear 4 horns. I'm sorry. But yeah, I can definitely hear drums when there are no drums around. And yeah, I hear the melodies and the harmonies when there's just one dude singing. So yeah, it really called attention to itself.
And yeah, we can't rest on Teen Beach Movie where it's in the movie, so it doesn't have to make sense.
Right, exactly.
This is the movie. It somewhat has to make sense. Because, again, like you mentioned, Mark, they didn't really clearly define the rules. Even without, I mean, sometimes you don't have to define them, and in not defining them directly, you kind of do define them. When you have characters in the background playing instruments, and it's not all of a sudden like a 10-piece band, yeah, we can assume it's meant to be what you're seeing on screen is where the music is coming from. But yeah, no, Joe Jonas singing to himself or Demi Lovato, and all of a sudden there's harmonies? No. It's just weird, because it feels out of place, and even if you can't pinpoint why it feels out of place, it's gonna feel out of place. That's the thing about it, is it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to notice it to realize it's there, and it sounds weird.
Right, and plus those songs are so overproduced that, there's no natural sound. They didn't insert some, it just sounds like it's basically piped right in from a studio,
right,
onto the set, or into the mics on the set, and that's it. So,
which is a real shame, because there's that whole through line of Joe Jonas wanting to have a more stripped down sound, and like, hey, if I ever played this, my fans wouldn't like it. And it's like that whole idea of like the rock singer who really wants to sing folk or whatever. And so it's like, okay, cool. Give me just Joe Jonas with a piano or a acoustic guitar, but they can't even do that.
Yeah, it all sounded the same. Whatever he was singing sounded the same. So.
Exactly. It's like, well, this sounds just like everything else I associate with you.
Well, and then he comes in at the end and he starts duetting with Demi Lovato, and even then it doesn't work.
Right.
To me, it's oddly antithetical to Teen Beach Movie, because Teen Beach Movie, again, like we've mentioned already, that takes place in a movie, so they don't have to address things that you see in movies. It's in the movie, so you're just assuming that it's going to take place. In this movie, I think they were trying to go for realism. At least that's what I assume, given that it's not like Mitchie all of a sudden can sing really well and we don't think she can sing at all, which I would go as far as to say is fantastical realism. You know, you have all of a sudden this character opens her mouth and she can sing, 12 octaves. Holy shit, that's insane. That's not what's happening here, though. I mean, what's happening here is the inability to choose. And because you can't choose, you have scenes where Joe Jonas is doing an in-sync routine when, like, I didn't even get the sense that was the kind of music the Connect 3 made. Also, by the way, terrible name for a band.
Horrible.
Also, like, the worst name for a band. Your name could have been the Butt Fucking Fauntleroys, and it would have been a better name than Connect 3.
I asked my daughter, did they say Connect 3? She's like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay. That's
like
what
Connect
I thought they
4,
said.
But like they're missing the fourth Jonas brother.
Yeah,
because he was the one that they were cloned from.
Oh,
that's the there's a what is it, a Robot Chicken bit about how the Jonas brothers were cloned from one Jonas brother. It's if you've never seen that Adult Swim bit, should Google it or YouTube it and check it out. It's pretty funny. I can never not think of that at this point. I also can't help but think about the fact that the Jonas brothers are like all married dudes now. Like they're all adults.
For me, I always used to joke around that there were actually 3 Olsen sisters, that 2 of them were conjoined twins. So Mary Kate is actually 2 people. Like there's one growing off of her back.
Oh my God. Double Trouble takes a whole new meaning. It's like the scene from Total Recall. Mary Kate turns around and there's just a small version on her back. Open your mind. Oh boy. Look, I'm curious because we've never really talked about this. Even when we talked about Teen Beach Movie, Mike and I didn't really delve into this. But I'm curious, Mark, because again, you have a kid in your house, and it is a kid who has been watching stuff like Disney Channel things, stuff like that, children's programming. For you, where does this fall?
Well, I actually thought about this yesterday because there are we hear the phrase like this wasn't made for me. We talk about movies, and I can understand that, but I also understand that as a piece of entertainment, anybody, any age should be able to watch something and be potentially entertained by it. And I think of shows that she watched when she was little. Like one of the first shows she ever watched was Yo Gabba Gabba, and I didn't mind watching it. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. That was when she was really little. And then she watched My Little Pony. and that show is made for specifically young girls or young children.
Wait.
And
I've seen the documentary. It's not meant for them.
It's about sweaty nerds, dude. Who like to jerk off to pony.
Exactly.
Pony
right.
characters.
I mean, the whole pony thing
it.
came about, but as just a normal guy who was way too old to be watching it, and my wife included, we were like, this show is really well made.
I feel like you're just throwing your wife under the bus because you liked watching Little Pony, man. Come on.
He's one step away from being a furry.
Mark, if there's something you want to tell us, this is a platform. You have the floor.
It's a well-made show, and you can have well-made Disney shows. You can have well-made kids shows, and you can have well-made Disney original movies, or whatever these things are called. And this rates way. Like even that show Jessie that I brought up earlier, I could sit through 20 hours of that before I'd probably watch this show again.
And by the way, the spin-off of that is called Bunked, BUNK''D.
Yeah, that's the show.
So what you're saying is even the things that are on Disney Channel now are much farther along than this show was this movie was 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so. I don't know how much of Disney Channel original stuff my daughter watched. I think most of it was Nickelodeon, but there may have been some. But yeah, I think so. This is pretty, and I think it comes down to the writing and the directing. It's just so flat, and there's so many things left untied at the end, and or come up all of a sudden at the end, like the girl who gets the big spotlight song and ends up winning the Camp Rock Jam or whatever they call it. It's like, where was her story the whole movie? She was just a sidekick the whole time. Why didn't she have at least a few scenes where she's like, I want to do my own songs. You know, I've written all these songs. And I guess maybe they thought about it too late and had to give her the Demi Lovato scene because Demi Lovato couldn't compete and win because she had gotten kicked out. I don't know what the reasoning was behind that, but that was really weird.
So I want to talk about my methamphetamine problem, which I feel very confident talking about it because of something that I read that Dee LaDuke, the camp counselor, was actually addicted to crystal meth for the entirety of the Camp Rock movie. Who the fuck wrote the trivia for this stuff on IMDb? I'm reading the trivia, and that's what it says. It says Dee LaDuke was actually addicted to crystal methamphetamine. They don't say that Julie Brown was addicted to crystal meth because she wasn't. And Dee LaDuke, the character that Julie Brown plays, wasn't addicted to crystal meth either. So where the hell are they getting this?
I will say, though, the guy that plays his uncle, or whoever he is, the main guy, he looked baked throughout this whole movie.
the Australian dude, or something else?
His eyes were red the whole movie. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I don't
Camp
get this
Rock
whole thing.
420 blaze it, bro.
It says this is why she only appears during major camp events, such as Brown Cesario wanted to give her the time that she needed to kick the addiction. Is that the Brown Cesario is the Australian guy's name. Again, the character name, not the actor's name. Is this from like the novelization? Is there like a sordid history of Camp Rock novel that we don't know?
You know what it is? It's called We Could Go Onto IMDb and plant the stupidest piece of fucking fake trivia on the most innocuous movie, and then 3 chuckleheads, when they come upon it, when they randomly decide to do, because one of the chuckleheads roped the other 2 into doing it, find this piece of trivia and somehow give it a platform for how fucking absurd it is.
Oh, I'm going in right now and deleting it.
Whoever you are, person, you have given us the most bizarre piece of trivia. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the bizarrest piece of trivia I've ever come across in my 6 years of doing movie podcasts. Because most of the time, even the weird trivia is mentioned somewhere else. This is contained to a singular IMDb trivia page.
And whoever planted that has been typing Camp Rock into their Google search for years now, waiting to see some podcast episode come up on the movie, and they will finally have their just rewards when this drops. I was going to say, I read that trivia before I watched the movie, so I didn't really know who. I thought they were talking about an actress named Dela Duke, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know every actress. And then when you posted that the other day, Mike, I was like, oh, they were talking about the characters.
And I'm like, even to the point where I was like, did Julie Brown have a drug problem? No, there's no way she had. I even like had to Google. I probably started something by Googling Julie Brown drug problem.
But I can tell you the other thing about this piece of trivia that cracks me up is not only is it a piece of trivia that I think we all agree this is not true. The second piece of kind of investigation you could do just by looking at it, clearly don't know how to spell counselor, but they know how to spell methamphetamine. So there is that. Because counselor is definitely not spelled Cillor. It is spelled Selor. Counselor, not counselor. So there's that. Also, why would you say a character in a Disney movie, of all things, is addicted to crystal meth?
Right.
I really think this has to be it. And I go out on a limb and say that because I knew a guy in college who, to prove a point about Wikipedia, went and did something similar where he, in a Wikipedia page, quoted or referenced himself and a book he didn't read or write about Hank Aaron, and then put himself as a reference in the reference point at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. And it's probably still there. So, you know what? Good on you, fucking random internet troll. Because if you've been waiting, you're gonna get your payoff. It's right here. And when you posted that on Facebook, I had to go and look and see what the hell you were talking about.
Right.
Because it sounded so absurd. It's more interesting than this entire movie.
That's true.
Like, what would really just motivate you to make up something so absurd? But yet at the same time, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I don't
for the character or for the
well, I mean, it makes sense if someone to be an internet troll.
Oh, okay.
But it also makes, I mean, like, sure, why not? The character's addicted to crystal meth. We'd know nothing about the character anyways, so sure.
It does explain her absence through most of the film, though.
And it's not as good of a piece of trivia as Peggy wore a total of 14 headbands in the film. So, a character being addicted to methamphetamine is a little dark for a Disney movie.
That was the stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor that kind of tied everything else together. So
right.
all those very important scenes and what happened with the stolen notebook and
Julie Brown's teeth falling out, meth mouth, all that. That was all on the cutting room floor. There was an intervention at one point. It's
Margaret's arc, or whatever that character's name was.
Yeah.
I hope that this movie did as well as I know it did, because it did really do well. But man, they did not elevate it where it needed to be entertaining for other people outside of the 9 to 14 age group. And that's unfair, because like you said, Mark, you could have gone a little farther, given this a little bit more maybe for the, like you said, parents who are watching it with their kids. I know as, someone who watches stuff similar to this, it does feel nice to see stuff that's put in there that inherently is not going to be understood or picked up on by kids. I mean, something like Lord Farquaad, that joke is going to go right over kids' heads forever until they realize what Lord Farquaad is in reference to, more who it is in reference to. And they kind of did that in Teen Beach Movie, and it wasn't in this film, and it is a shame.
I think it just, again, it goes down. If this was strictly a vehicle for Demi Lovato and the Jonas Brothers, they cared little about anything else, and there was no effort put into plot structure and story and character arcs and anything like that. So I guess if your target audience is just people who are going to be very excited to see these 4 individuals on screen, they're not going to notice anything else, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. That really seems like that's their through line, and that's all it was, which is unfortunate because you can do a lot of stuff with a camp setting. I was waiting for camp stuff to happen, and there was no camp stuff. And
which is insane.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, fun camp stuff. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Nothing. No camp stuff whatsoever. And even the stereotypical montage scenes were flat and uninspired. The one at the beginning with her getting ready like they have at the beginning of every teen movie was just sort of and then the big get ready for what was the final show called? The
Final Jam.
The Final Jam. I should have known. Even that stuff was pretty uninspired. So I don't know. Have some fun if you're writing a piece of schlock for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Put something interesting in there. Don't just have the bottom line be it's a vehicle for these people.
Right.
It's a vehicle to sell CDs because holy shit did they sell a lot of CDs. The soundtrack for Camp Rock went platinum. I mean, if the movie existed to sell the music, you know what? Good on you, because it sold almost 200,000 copies in the first week.
Wow.
Yeah. Holy shit, right? I mean, the soundtrack came out in June, and it was certified gold and platinum in September.
Jeez.
I mean, if that's what this is for, then that's what this was for. And you know what? I can't fault them.
Yeah, they succeeded greatly then. It's just a shame that they didn't take any care at all in the little hour-and-a-half movie that they had in front of them.
In the advertisement.
That's a little bit cynical. I mean, to be honest, that kind of makes me feel that was their ultimate goal, and that's a very cynical reason to make a film, to sell thousands of units of something to preteen kids.
But yet that is exactly what happened. And that's a shame. I mean, it's a shame because there's part of me that would like to have not seen this be successful, because it kind of just like I mentioned before on something else, it kind of eats its own face, right? Like if you keep doing this and it's successful, you're never going to make something that challenges the audience. You're going to just keep making this drivel over and over again. And they made a second one. They made so many other things based off of this formula, and it worked. I mean, Demi Lovato is a star now because of this movie. And hey, if it worked, it worked. But yeah, to your point, Mark, it's very cynical, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help change my notions about what Disney is trying to do all the time.
Yeah, generate cash.
Exactly. But before we close this out, we really haven't talked about her. I am curious. What did y'all think of the lead, Demi Lovato?
She definitely was in this movie.
She was fine. She wasn't obnoxious or as wooden or stiff as Joe Jonas was by any means. I kind of liked that they had her have a little girl power moment there when he came into the kitchen and was rude, and she let him know that he was rude. And so that was nice to know that was happening in 2008 on Disney Channel. Give the girls some empowerment.
Yeah, no, that was nice. And there were a couple times where I think if memory serves, this starts with her trying on different outfits, and she actually ends up back in the first one that she tried, and it was like, I'm good enough as it is. I was like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, she was so bland for me. Like I said, I kept mixing her up with another actress because she just didn't have any there.
Well, and yeah, I mean, again, contrasted against the character from Teen Beach Movie, it's her character, Demi Lovato's character of Mitchie, is really underserved because, again, she's the lead. I mean, she's supposed to be given a lot to do. She's supposed to be the character you want to be, see succeed. She's the character the entire film is built around, so much so that the title of the film is featuring Jonas Brothers and introducing Demi Lovato. You don't put that on the poster front and center if this is not her film. And yeah, she's kind of there to sing, which is fine given the context of how this film ends up being released and ends up making money. But yeah, her acting suffers. She's a very gifted, talented singer. There's no question of that. But they really needed to give her more to do in this film because, I mean, if you see interviews with Demi Lovato, she's a very endearing person for a lot of folks, myself included. And it's kind of a shame because I know she can do better than this.
And probably has. If you compare her though to Joe Jonas, for me, she acted circles around him. He
True.
was really tough to watch the entire movie. I think Nick Jonas, in his few scenes, outshone his older, I'm assuming older brother, like by a mile. He probably should have been the lead. I guess he was probably a little too young though.
Well, there is some good news on the horizon, though, just so we're all on the same page. We may be getting Camp Rock 3.
Oh, good Lord.
With them? With all of them?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I hope so. I mean,
I'd actually watch it out of curiosity.
I mean, I don't think that this is a real story plotline, but this is what the IMDb says, so take that with what you will. Set in 2021, Shane Gray and Mitchie Torres have gotten a divorce. Mitchie is running the new Camp Rock 2.0 experiment with her old friends from her days at Camp Rock while Shane fights for her love. Experience the world of vloggers and internet personalities for your first time with all your favorite friends from Camp Rock. See you in 2021, campers.
Vloggers.
I didn't even think that was still a thing.
I know. I think that's a little dated now, isn't it? Why aren't they podcasters?
Depends on who you watch on YouTube. As someone whose significant other watches a lot of vloggers on YouTube, I can tell you with absolute certainty, they are still there, they still make a lot of money, and we are just not the audience.
I didn't think that they used that term, though.
Oh, yeah, mommy vloggers, yeah. I mean...
Okay.
That sounds dirty, Chris.
Mommy vloggers are women who vlog on YouTube about being a mom.
Okay. I thought you were looking at my search history.
I really still think they should have gone with podcasters, though.
Yeah.
Really wanted to hit the pulse of the nation right now.
Because podcasting's where it's at. I mean, it's up and coming. It's like kickboxing, the sport of the future.
And they could have just gotten any middle-aged white person to be a podcaster, and people would have gone, yep.
That's it.
Nailed it.
But he has to be a guy.
Oh, yeah.
3 white dudes, and we're having a good time together. I mean, Mike, if I were basing the movie off of your search history, it would just be, how can I convince people I'm not 100% a cannibal? And on that note, what would you give Camp Rock out of 5, Mr. Mark Begley?
When I rated it on Letterboxd, I gave it a 1.5.
What about you, Mike White?
I'd probably be a little bit more generous and give it a 2.
Yeah, I would give it about a 2.5. I mean, again, I think if I hadn't seen Teen Beach Movie first, I may have given it a 3 because again, it's just good enough. I'm not the target audience, like you said, Mark. That shouldn't really super duper play into this equation, but unfortunately, it does. And yeah, I'm okay with this movie enough. I don't have any interest in watching the sequel unless there is a third one. Then I will watch the sequel. But it's good enough. And look, they sold a shitload of music, so good on them. They succeeded. Let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the final film of Disney Channel Originals Month.
Saturday, April 10th. It's the world premiere of a Disney Channel original movie. For Mike Pillsbury, life on planet Earth has never been easy.
You idiot, you're running the wrong way!
So he sent a call for help into outer space.
Fellow citizens of the galaxy, I do not belong on this planet. Come and get me!
Little did he know who'd show up.
I am Barnabas from the star system Papis.
Oh boy.
I am the bull. How do you do? Mike Pillsbury, you have opened up a can of worms.
I never thought that thing would work.
Now, the most popular kid in the world
More and more specimens will be snatched.
has the biggest problem in the galaxy.
Doing all right. You look stressed out.
On April 10th, lock your doors, hide your food, and be careful what you wish for.
I can't just take off on a spaceship. I freaked out at sleepaway camp.
Can of Worms, the Saturday premiere of a Disney Channel original movie. April 10th at 7, 6 Central, only on Disney. Saturday, April 10th on Magical World of Disney. To his parents, Mike Pillsbury has always been out of touch.
Doing all right.
To his sister, out of his mind.
You are definitely from another planet.
But when he sends a call for help into outer space,
Come and get me!
he'll be out of this galaxy.
You have opened up a can of worms.
Now it's up to him to save his family and the world.
You need more fresh air.
Can of Worms, the Saturday premiere of a Disney Channel original movie. April 10th at 7, 6 Central, only on Disney.
That's right. On the final Culture Cast of Disney Channel Originals month, we're going to be talking about a sci-fi film called Can of Worms. It stars Malcolm McDowell, and these two guys are wondering why they didn't pick that movie.
I didn't have the option to choose.
That's true, because Richard Haddam and Cullen Gallagher took it away from you. So next time you talk to either one of them, you can say, thanks for the Camp Rock watch, guys. It was super great. 2 thumbs up. But seriously, we'll be talking about Can of Worms. That is another early on Disney Channel original. And yes, it stars Malcolm McDowell. So until then, what has been keeping you busy, Mr. Mark Begley?
Well, not a whole heck of a lot. I'm still in the same mode I was in when we last spoke and not doing all that much. I did just record an episode today that should be out by the time this is out. And it's all about me. I don't even talk about any movies.
Wow.
And, yeah, you can check all that out at wakeupheavy.com, and which has links to SoundCloud and iTunes and all those other wonderful places you can listen to podcasts.
What about you, Mike?
Well, as always, you can find me over at the Projection Booth Podcast, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com.
And as for this podcast, you can find this podcast at culturecast.com. Patreon.com/culturecast is where you can kick a couple dollars our way if you're into it. If not, I totally get it. Twitter, we're on Twitter as well, at culturecast, and I'm on Twitter at Christmas Claus. Big thanks to these two fellas for joining me. Next month, we'll be watching something that's not a Disney Channel movie, I promise. And in Mark's case, it might be something we both enjoy, not ironically.